A doubleheader of Monday Night Football to end out week number 3 of this 2024 NFL season. It starts in Western New York between the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. First game kicks at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. About 45 minutes later, we'll go to Cincinnati as the Bengals play host to the Commanders. And let's start first in Buffalo. The Bills, 5.5-point favorite. Buffalo, a perfect 2-0 straight up this year, 1-1 against the spread, missing out on a cover week 1 as the favorite, despite storming back against Arizona, did not cover as a 6.5-point favorite, winning 34-28. The Jags, also 1-1 against the number. They did cover as an underdog, despite also blowing an early 2-touchdown lead to Miami. They did not look good last week in their home opener in Duval County against the Cleveland Browns. Just 17 points in total for Jacksonville in that first game against Miami. 13 against Cleveland last week. The offense has been slow to start for the Jags. DRS, how do you break down this matchup in Buffalo tonight?
There's two angles that you're going to want to take a look at tonight. First, if you start with the Buffalo Bills, 2-0 to start the season, you're right. Sluggish performance against Arizona, who, again, I come full circle and say, you know what? Preseason thoughts till now, Arizona's a pretty competitive ball club at this point. Much better than I thought they would be. So maybe you look at that Buffalo Bills game number 1 and say, boy, that's a heck of a comeback against a pretty solid Arizona team, or at least a team that's going to fight you to the finish. Week number 2, short week, go on the road and absolutely beat the heck out of the Miami Dolphins. Now, granted, we look at the Miami Dolphins and say to ourselves, what are the actual Dolphins this year? Maybe we have to readjust and reevaluate at this point the way they look. But also, the Buffalo Bills, it feels like they haven't played for a month, Ben. They played on that Thursday night. They've been off the entire time getting ready for the Jaguars, and now have a home game, and they're 2-0 in control of their own division. Now, if you want to take a look at the Jaguars, week number 1, they probably should have beat the Miami Dolphins, but blew that game late. And also, again, what do we actually think of the Miami Dolphins and how sound they are, even with Tua Tagovailoa, as the Buffalo Bills were blowing them out? Week 2 at home. Hey, look at that. Cleveland responds, played good defense and beat the Jaguars. Then you see Cleveland lose at home to the Giants and say, boy, is Cleveland even any good? So now you're taking a look at the Jaguars going 0-2 against two teams that basically look like bottom feeders potential right now in the AFC. But also you have to remind yourself of this. I am a big proponent as well, Ben. When you're 0-2 on the season, you are fighting for jobs inside the building, because if you go 0-3, the chances of making the playoffs are very minuscule at this point, unless you go on an incredible heater. And as Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are, which means you will be 0-3. That's a bad football team. You're also injured at the tight end position. Evan Ingram had a great season last year. He's going to be down week number 2. Now you're relying on younger rookie wide receivers on a team that hasn't played that great, and the Buffalo Bills are flying in high and mighty. So which one are you going to take? The 0-3 like I played yesterday with the Baltimore Ravens, knowing that obviously the Ravens are technically a better team than the Jaguars. They couldn't lose that football game on the road, and they didn't. I don't have that same type of appeal here saying, well, Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden is going to get this offense moving and going forward. The Buffalo Bills had under a touchdown. If I think the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game, which I do, then I think they're going to win this game by 7 points. That's the better angle for me. The Bills are better. The Bills are rested. The Bills are at home.
Right. I mean, DRS, you're not wrong in your thought process, of course, there. When you look at the Jags, again, 0-2 since the postseason expanded in 2020 in the National Football League, that additional wild card team entering this Week 3 slate. In the past 4 years, we had seen 32 teams start winless 0-2. Only 2 have made the playoffs. Back in 2022, it was the Bengals. We'll talk about them on another 0-2 start in 2024. And last year, the Texans coming out of nowhere to win the AFC South in 2023. And again, Jacksonville had the expectation entering last year to go back-to-back as an AFC South divisional champ with a young and promising quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. They got off to an 8-3 start to the first 12 weeks. They lost 5 of their final 6 to allow the Texans to take the divisional crown. But Jacksonville, despite this 0-2 start, DRS, and only averaging 15 points per game, and oh, by the way, they were shut out in the second half by the Finns week 1. So just 13 points in their last 6 quarters of football. I'm going to buy back in on the Jags. We have never seen, or actually once since 2000 in this millennium, an 0-3 team make the postseason after that kind of start. It was the Texans back in 2018. But I also buy in on the Jags for two more reasons. How great they have been as an underdog covering and on the road covering under Doug Peterson. 10-8 against the spread away from Duval County in the last now 2+ years. Did cover on the road in Miami. 12-9 against the spread as an underdog. And Donnie, we know this is the year of the dog. Teams that are a 5.5-point underdog or greater, 13-2 ATS. I think Buffalo wins tonight. I think Jacksonville keeps it within that 5.5-point spread.
So if we're looking at this game and trying to be optimistic, right, you have some talented players, obviously, on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just hasn't come to fruition just yet this year. Travis Etienne Jr., Bigsby's banged up coming into this game. So I look at it like this. What's going to be more likely here? Travis Etienne, who had 12 carries for 44 yards in game number 1 against the Browns, 13 for 52. He's been serviceable and scored touchdowns in both those games. You wish you would have held on to one of those extra touchdowns against Miami because they'd be 1-1 instead of 0-2 at this point. So I say to myself, if I like the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight, I actually don't bet the Jags because there's a chance that they could get beat by more than 7 points. But there's no way they're hanging around, Ben, unless Travis Etienne has a solid performance. You take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook today, you're not asking for like a Saquon Barkley 72.5 or a Jordan Mason over 80 yards. Take a look at this. Travis Etienne in this game, 49.5 yards. If he doesn't get 50 yards, there's no way the Jacksonville Jaguars win this football game. But there is a chance that he can get 50-plus yards and then lose this game and lose it by margin. Travis Etienne is the key for me tonight. If you want to take Jacksonville, he has to perform tonight, and he should be the bell cow, which means 15-plus carries, which means he should be in the 50s, win or lose tonight for me, for the Jags.
And Trevor Lawrence has to be a lot better. Last week threw for 220, but less than a 50% completion percentage, not a touchdown. Only one touchdown week number 1 and just a $162. DRS, if you think Buffalo is the better team, how do you look at their prop outlook for this night?
Again, if you think they're going to win the football game, I think James Cook's going to be a big part of that. Love the way the kids looked early in the season. It looks like they finally have that bell cow that they can trust, but also just on the shoulders of Josh Allen. Like, if they score 3 touchdowns tonight, he's going to probably equate to at least 2 of those, which means he runs one in and throws one in, maybe hands the football off to Cook. If you're looking at a Buffalo victory tonight, it's right on the shoulders of Josh Allen. Can't lose with that guy.
We'll talk a few more props from the opener on Monday, and then we'll get to Cincinnati next. A few more props from the opener of our doubleheader on this Monday night to end out week number 3 in Buffalo. DRS, completely agree with your assessment on James Cook, 61.5 rushing yards. Jacksonville has been fine defensively in its first 2 games against Miami and then against Cleveland. It's the offense that needs to pick it up for the Jaguars if they are going to get their first win and avoid an 0-3 start. I find Buffalo incredibly interesting. Khalil Shakir is Buffalo's leading receiver this year, but nobody on the Bills has hit the century mark through 2 weeks. 96 yards is what Shakir has. He had more than 45.5 with 50-plus in week number 2 on that short Thursday night in Miami. James Cook, at least 95 scrimmage yards in each of the first 2. Part of that could also be, Donnie, Josh Allen in Buffalo so far ahead at the break. A pick 6 early in the third quarter against the Finns. They didn't need much. He was 13 of 19 for a $139 and a touchdown. Has not thrown an interception so far to the first 2 weeks of this season. But I do really want to see the number tonight for Dalton Kincaid, the second-year tight end out of Utah, who many people were very optimistic about his offensive role in this Bills offense. The number is now 37.5. I think it could be a buy low spot, not expecting Kincaid to be this bad through all 17 games for Buffalo this season.
Yeah, also, let's take a look at some wide receiving options here, Ben, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And yesterday, we loved this on the set, and rightfully so. Stephon Diggs, I think it was like 45.5, something in that range, under 50 yards, goes back to Minnesota, has a really nice day. They do get thumped in the effort, but certainly he showed up. I take a look at Gabe Davis going back to his old stomping grounds in Buffalo at 38.5. And again, if I do think that Jacksonville's going to lose this game, that means maybe some extra passes in the fourth quarter. That's not a huge number to go over, but also get back to the point of Travis Travis Etienne. If Bigsby is banged up heading into this game, I'm looking at Travis Etienne out of the backfield also at 20.5. That's 2 screen passes, a couple dump downs here. I think we can make this work. So in a game I'm not in love with overall from like a side, let's just say total perspective, I think there's a pretty good props market that you can make, angles to this game that make a lot of sense. Granted, you shouldn't just say, hey, Gabe Davis going back to Buffalo, he's the centerpiece of that offense. Not necessarily, but understand the points too. These guys are in the locker room. You don't think Trevor Lawrence ever comes up to him, or at least CJ Stroud yesterday or the day before during the week of practice? Hey, man, I know it's a big game for you. I'll take care of you like you're going to be the center point, but I'm not going to embarrass you by giving you one target for 3 yards and have the crowd constantly on you the whole game. He should be able to get over that number, Gabe Davis, and get it to the 40s.
Yeah, Gabe Davis, 38.5, only 3 catches in each of his first 2 games for the Jags, but has been over in both and was targeted 7 times a week ago. All right, so the Jacksonville Jaguars, winless 0-2. The Bengals have been winless 0-2 each of the past 3 seasons, but in the previous 2, in 2022 and 2023, they have won week number 3. They have won 4 of their next 5. They were trending in a positive direction last year before Joe Burrow got injured and missed the remainder of the season. Do we see something similar tonight in Cincinnati as the Bengals host the Commanders as more than a touchdown favorite?
Yeah, I do think we're having a bounce-back performance tonight for Cincinnati. You take a look at that game number 2. They were the better team. They were better than Kansas City. But again, Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes, and you don't. Like Joe Burrow as a quarterback, he's certainly not Patrick Mahomes. But let's take a look in the focal point tonight that I want to look at here. That's T. Higgins at wide receiver is coming back into the fold. He does have the hamstring issues still, but he is playing. Here's the reason why I bring that up. I'm not going to be betting T. Higgins tonight. And maybe he has a great performance, but more of maybe a decoy playing half the snaps he typically does. But certainly he'll be on the passing snaps much more than the running snaps as he was to have, let's just say, in a regular season game, him being healthy. But also, Jamar Chase on the opposite side. Tonight's the night for Jamar Chase. Tonight's the night he goes over 100 yards. Tonight's the night he gets in the end zone. Why? Because even if T. Higgins is out there basically as a decoy, he still has to be accounted for. It can't be Yoshi Voss and we'll let him run wild. Now T. Higgins is there, and you have to pay attention to him being an offensive red zone target, which means a lot more targets might be coming for Jamar Chase, and he gets single coverage as opposed to rolled over or double coverage here. I think tonight Joe Burrow shows up. Cincinnati's defense plays fantastic. It's a rookie on the road. That hook really is begging you to take the Washington Commanders. I'm not buying it. Cincinnati Bengals by double digits tonight on Monday Night Football.
DRS, I think the line is the line for a reason. What does any of that mean? Did I just quote Mike Tomlin and say the standard is the standard? What I mean by this is when this line opened up for week 3, I was like, why are the Commanders getting more than a touchdown against a winless Bengals team? Washington should keep this game competitive. They have looked halfway decent, at least they did last week against the Giants. But have they really? And have the Bengals been as bad as the 0-2 record indicates? We'll talk about it up next when hour 3 begins with a question to all of you on the early line. Welcome to hour number 3 live right here on the early line on Sports Grid. It is a Monday. It starts off this new week, but to end out week 3, we've got a doubleheader of Monday Night Football. In Buffalo, it's the Bills and the Jaguars. In Cincinnati, it's the Bengals and the Commanders. Both Cincy and Jacksonville have lost their opening 2 games of the year, looking for win number 1 tonight. The Bengals more than a touchdown favorite against the Commanders. The Jags a 5.5-point road dog in Western New York. We continue our preview of the doubleheader to end out week 3 on this Monday night. We'll hear from the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, up next on the big injuries from the weekend that was around the National Football League and some prop perspective on this Monday from Sports Grid's Tom Vecchio as well. All of that DRS in this final hour.
Boy, we need the doc's advice. There are so many injuries already in the NFL. Timelines need to be set straight at this point, but we are getting prepared for a doubleheader on Monday night. This is fantastic that the NFL does this. I believe 4 times during this season, we're going to have that doubleheader on Monday Night Football, so get used to it. And quite frankly, this should be an every week occurrence, to be honest. I understand they like the Thursday Night Football package because it brings them in a lot of money, even though sometimes it's bad football late in the season and teams that shouldn't be in prime time are in prime time. But we still watch. Love the Sundays that we have. But doubleheaders on Monday night do feel special. And also, I do like the fact that the double headers basically are side by side in a staggered start. So you don't have to wait up till 1 a.m. to watch that final game finish. When I was younger,
Right.
Ben would have loved the doubleheader. Hey, look at that. It used to be the early game, then the Raiders game on the West Coast to open the season. That's fantastic. I like that they're staggered here. A 7:30 start, an 8:15 start. It's awesome. 2 games on, 2 games to bet, 2 games to handicap. This is what we do.
Yeah. It'll be great for you guys on NFL football in-game live game day to have not just one game to belabor during commercial breaks or as things slow down, you can go through two. That's Donnie, Joe Lisi, and Kevin Walsh tonight live right here on Sports Grid for the rare doubleheader on this Monday night to end out week number 3. Now, DRS, I did say on Thursday when we were last together that we would be tracking the public because oftentimes with the standalone primetime games on Monday and Thursday, we ask the public what is your best bet for this NFL contest. The public on Thursday saying under 36.5 or 38.5, whatever it was, between the Jets and the Patriots, and they were spot on. It was well under. New York won that game comfortably 24-3. So now we get to hear what the public likes for this Monday night doubleheader. The public so far this year, 3-2 in their overall 5 picks through the standalone games that we have asked. Does the good time continue for the public, or will we be looking the other way? We find out together and Fade the Public. Now, DRS, you would expect when we have 2 spreads tonight that are at 5.5 and 7.5, when we ask the public to just pick the straight-up winner, they're going to go with the favorites, and that does make sense. But in a year where many people are out of their survivor pools by week 3, in a year we have seen underdogs of at least 5.5 points be 13-2 against the spread, with 9 outright victories, including 4 underdogs of 5.5 points or more winning outright on Sunday. Maybe it's a little bit of a tougher proposition for the public. Regardless, the public still going overwhelmingly with the 2 heavy home favorites tonight. The Bengals laying 7.5 against the Commanders. The Bills laying 5.5 against the Jaguars and taking them outright. It's minus 125 to put those 2 hefty favorites together in a money line parlay. More than 63% saying Cincy, Buffalo getting dubs tonight. DRS, are you fading the public?
No, I'm not going to fade the public. It seems too simple, and you're right about this. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, we've seen crazy upsets. Team we never thought would be in spots to win football games and ended up winning, let alone winning the entire game like the Carolina Panthers and smoking the Raiders. Or if it's you're down 14-0, the Rams are dead in the water, no way they can win, their season is over, only to see them come all the way back and kick a winning field goal at the end of the game. And also, we're not taking a look at bad football teams per se tonight. Yes, you're looking at the Jaguars as a bad record 0-2, but there's still a lot of talent out there where they can beat the Buffalo Bills. I don't think it's going to happen, but certainly it's in the realm of you're not going to be, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. And the same thing with the Washington Commanders. Maybe get a breakout game from Jaden Daniels, throws a couple touchdown passes and puts the heat on an 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals team, which quite frankly hasn't been that great to start the season, losing game to the terrible New England Patriots, then losing that game in heartbreaking fashion to Kansas City. I do think both of the favorites, both of the home teams do have good performances tonight. 63.5% of these votes already coming in on the Bengals and the Bills at a minus 125 parlay to win it. I think that's the sound move, and I do believe the public is right. I won't fade them tonight.
So the Bengals are one of those 15 teams that were a 5.5-point underdog or greater week 2 in Kansas City, part of the 13 teams that have covered as a 5.5-point dog or greater. Almost one of the what would have been 10 to win outright, unable to do so because of the defensive pass interference call at the end of the game last week in KC. I think one of the reasons, DRS, you look at the Bengals laying 7 and a hook tonight against Washington and think to yourself, why is the spread so large? The last time the Bengals were more than a touchdown favorite against a perceived less than 500 team was week number 1 as the largest favorite of the slate against the Patriots. And of course, they lost outright. Again, I said right before we hit the break into our third hour, this game looked to me where the line is telling us something. You can learn from the line. Throw out your football handicap. Don't bring up the X's and O's and why Joe Burrow can expose a bad Commander secondary as we have seen over the last year. Plus, this line is 7.5 for a reason. So let's break it down. The Bengals, right, trying to avoid an 0-3 start for the third consecutive year when they have started 0-2. They have won week 3 each of the past 2. They know with Super Bowl aspirations, you cannot start winless 0-3. A Super Bowl champ in the NFL has never been 0-3 through their first 3 games and only won the 2018 Texans since the turn of the millennium in 2000 has even gone on to make the postseason. So the Bengals having to climb that uphill battle once again. I believe they do so, but can they cover as a 7.5-point favorite? The Commanders, DRS, week number 1, blown out in Tampa. 37-20, came nowhere close to covering as a 3.5-point underdog. And it was a late touchdown as Jaden Daniels and Washington were trying to get their groove going with their rookie quarterback to really even make that game 3 scores as opposed to 4. Last week, the Commanders got their first win of the year. Great. They did not score a touchdown. 7 field goals from Austin Seibert, who was signed in the week because of the Giants' inability to elevate a kicker. That's what cost New York the game, and now a 2-1 start, and the Commanders an 0-2 hole. The Bengals feel like the very right side tonight, and as you said, maybe even winning by double digits, covering as a 7.5-point favorite.
Yeah, Lou Anarumo is one of the better defensive coordinators in the sport itself. You know, he's got to be licking his chops to get a rookie quarterback on the road, and especially the pressure environment that's going to be on tonight. Not with the Washington Commanders. They're waiting to see if they have their franchise quarterback, which we certainly think they do. But also from a Bengals look, they need this game because you're right. You're probably not making the playoffs, and certainly a Super Bowl run is going to be out the window for this ultra-talented team with that turmoil of the offseason. The best way to get rid of the turmoil of the offseason, start winning football games. Should have had one last week against Kansas City. You blew that game late. Terrible play by your defensive back, causing that pass interference, directly caused you to lose. And as you saw the cameras pan over to Joe Burrow, as soon as he saw that, threw his helmet on the bench, knowing they were the better football team and didn't win. They are the better football team once again tonight. They just have to play that way. So if I'm trying to attack this game, that's 7.5. I'm not buying it there. I think this could be a double-digit win for the Bengals in a complete performance, offense and defensively. If you're looking at some of those prop bets that you like on the board tonight, I don't think you can lose this way. I think Burrow's going to throw a couple touchdown passes. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But from a wide receiver perspective, Jamar Chase, plus 110 price. T. Higgins, plus 180. And I know T. Higgins is coming back from a hamstring injury. But you know what that means, Ben? Maybe he's not on the field on the 40 and 50-yard line, but he's definitely going to be in the field on the red zone there, and they'll want him to get him that football with a chance for a jump ball. Give me 1 or 2 targets in the red zone, he'll score. Chase, Higgins, at least one of those guys is going to be in the end zone. That's plus money.
Live right here to start off this new week on the early line. You know what that means. It's the prop perspective on this Monday with Sports Grid's Tom Vecchio. When Vecchio signed in and during the commercial break, and we make our pleasantries, and we say, Vecchio, how you doing, man? How was the weekend? He hit us with an effing awesome. So he's ready to go for this Monday, and you will be as well. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, let's get this week started off on a good note. We have 2 great games tonight. Obviously, I'll be covering those for the pregame show, the halftime show, the with Casey Hudson, Dave Sherapan, Adam Kaplan. We have a lot to get to. I have some really, really interesting angles, especially when it comes to some running back props. Now, let's get to it.
A stacked crew on this Monday. Vecchio, Casey, Adam Kaufman, and Sherapan lead you into the live reactions with Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh, and Joe Lisi. Let's start with the opening of the 2 games that we have, Tom. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kick in Western New York. The Bills a 5.5-point favorite, perfect unbeaten 2-0 against the winless 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. 45.5 is the total. Vecchio, this year, 5.5-point underdogs or greater have been fantastic, keeping game closer than expected. 13-2 against the spread, 9 outright victories like we saw in 4 spots on the Sunday slate. How close will this game be tonight in Buffalo?
I think it has to be close for the Jaguars, or they're going to be hitting the red alert button, as they will be 0-3, a spot that you like to say they could have competed for the division with the Texans. We didn't know what we were going to be getting from the Colts. This is dire scenario for the Jaguars, and the Bills would just be rolling at this point when the Dolphins are dealing with a million injuries, and they would just ultimately have to compete with the Jets, and the Bills could be pushing towards the 2nd seed in the AFC. So this is a massive, massive game for playoff and implications in the AFC. I expect things to be close. I expect a little bit of lack of scoring tonight. And ultimately, when I'm looking at some of the props, I think there's a very, very direct route we can be going. I think there's a whole lot of correlation we can build into some of our bets.
Tom, let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars side of things. You take a look at tonight. Trevor Lawrence's pass prop here, 226.5. Travis Etienne, 49.5 as a rushing prop. And Brian Thomas Jr., the good young wide receiver for the Jags, at 45.5. How are we attacking Jacksonville tonight from an offensive prop side?
This is one of the things I just noted with the correlation. If Lawrence hits the under on this prop, they lose this game. Like, I think it's pretty clear. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively. And if they are, we're just going to see Josh Allen hit the over on his. So if Lawrence ends the game with 190 yards, at this point, we just should be taking the Bills at -5.5 because they probably cover in that circumstance. So this has to be a big game for Lawrence. They gave him all that money. They have all this talent around him with some of the wide receivers and the running backs. Like, this is the time to show up and put up a big performance. So he needs to have a big game tonight if the Jaguars want to have any chance.
Under this number in both the first two games this year, frankly, Jacksonville's offense has been stagnant. They scored 17 in the opening half against Miami. They had a 2-touchdown lead in those first 30 minutes against the Dolphins. From that point in the 6 quarters, including last week against Cleveland, 13 total points. The Jags right now, albeit in only 2 games, tied for the 3rd worst scoring offense in the National Football League. On the other side, for Buffalo, 31 or more points in each of the first 2. Part of the 31 last week against Miami was a pick 6 in the second half. But Vecchio, despite Buffalo's very strong start and a 2-0 beginning to this year, still trying to figure things out offensively with that new cast and crew for the Bills, who steps up for Buffalo at home in Western New York tonight.
Like you said, they're still trying to figure things out, at least when it comes to the passing game. James Cook is the guy in the backfield for the Bills. That is standard. Right. We know what we're going to be getting from them. After that, the passing game is where things are most interesting for the Bills. We know they're returning really just 2 players, I'm going to say, maybe 3 if you want to add in Dawson Knox, but it's Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and Dawson Knox as those options, and adding in the rookie Keon Coleman. This throws things for a bit of a loop where Coleman was great in week 1. He did absolutely nothing in week 2. And we're seeing like this, I want to say, up and down, like yo-yoing, where like some players are going to be bad, some players are going to be good in terms of results. And I think this does open a lot of opportunities. So I'm looking for Kincaid to find the end zone for the first time this week. We know he has a great red zone share, even at least to start the season dating back to last year. He has that consistency with Josh Allen. So that's where I'm looking to start things off with a touchdown for Dalton Kincaid.
How about that? Bills looking to go 3-0 against the Jaguars, dropping them to 0-3. And then we take a look at the NFC action here, which we're going to take a look at the Commanders now going on the road to take on the AFC Cincinnati Bengals, who are also looking to get up off the carpet with their first win of the season. Current spread here listed at the FanDuel Sportsbook, -7.5, -105 on the juice, and a total that's listed at 46.5. Tom, if we look right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook, their betting statistics show 65% of the tickets on the Cincinnati Bengals and 77% of the money. 7.5-point favorite here. What gives tonight between the Commanders and the Bengals for you?
I have a very tough time trusting the Bengals, and I think this is going to be, it could be a very slow start for them. I'm going to say could be a little bit like week 1, where week 1 teams start off slow, offenses and firing on all cylinders. We saw that from the Bengals. They're adding in T. Higgins this week. So they have to smooth things out, not just from their offense overall, which did look better in week 2 against the Chiefs. They're adding in T. Higgins. So this is almost like a halfway between week 1 and week 2, where Chase wasn't on full snap count in week 1. They looked terrible. Granted, it was week 1, say what you want. But now they have to add in T. Higgins. And he's a player that is going to command X amount of targets per game. Same thing with Jamar Chase. So if they start off slow or this game has a lack of scoring, I think the Commanders are absolutely in a place to cover. I would not be surprised if this game ends 23-20. I think the Bengals ultimately win, but I do not expect it to be efficient at all.
The Bengals have started 0-2 each of the past 3 NFL seasons, including this one in the 2 prior. Of course, they were victorious in week number 3 and then went on to win 4 of their next 5 games after the 0-2 start. So, Vecchio, before we get to Washington, let's focus on that Cincy offense. You express concern. How does that show itself and how you will approach the prop market for the Bengals tonight?
Yeah, that comes down to fading the running backs. I think things will be a little bit rocky when it comes to the passing game, but that should be the point of emphasis. That's what they need to figure out. So let's go to Zach Moss, under 50.5 rushing yards. He only has 21 carries and 78 yards through 2 games. The Bengals have a 65.1 pass play percentage. That's the 4th highest in the league. And again, with T. Higgins back, they can't put him out there ready to go and then not pass the ball, right? That has to be the point of emphasis. That is going to be their strong suit. Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. That's what they need to figure out. So Zach Moss hasn't been good to start the year, and I'm not expecting him to play a massive role. And then let's quickly turn to Chase Brown, under 9.5 receiving yards. That is a super, super low line, but 33 and 20% snap share over the first 2 weeks. He has a 4.7% target share, which is extremely low. He only has 3 receptions and 12 yards, and that was all came in week 1. And again, if T. Higgins is back, they're not going to be spending time throwing the ball to Chase Brown. The point of emphasis is to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on the same page so the offense can operate at 100% efficiency. Chase Brown is not going to play a major factor tonight.
Tom, looking at the Washington Commanders tonight, Jaden Daniels under 200 as a passing prop. It's listed at 197.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Brian Robinson, 53.5 rushing yards. And Terry McLaurin, 48.5 receiving yards. Any angles you want to play from a Commanders side?
Yeah, let's go to Daniels. I like the over, and honestly, I like the over on his completions. He has been really, really efficient in terms of moving the ball. They're not super long throws. He's completing at over 70%. He doesn't have a passing touchdown yet, so they're still working some things out with the Commanders' offense. I think he looks good. I think there's some clear upside. And if they do fall behind, his combined rushing plus passing sitting at 249.5. I think this is a clear spot where he does get his first passing touchdown of the season. It's the over on the combined, and I think his completions prop is actually very, very interesting again because they're playing things kind of safe where they're moving the ball. They're not big chunk plays, but they get the ball, they move the chains, they get the ball, they move the chains, and they keep him in a good spot to avoid making mistakes, which we saw a lot of young quarterbacks do yesterday.
18.5 for his completions. Jaden Daniels, unlike his 2 rookie counterparts in Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, and even the young Anthony Richardson, actually really good completing the football this year, better than a 75% completion percentage. No touchdowns just yet. Bo Nix, 0 touchdowns. Caleb finally threw 2 yesterday, albeit with 2 INTs as well. Tom Vecchio, we will see you later tonight on this Monday here on Sports Grid for the doubleheader of action. We'll look at the doubleheader and continue to give you some picks next. It is time on this Monday with a doubleheader of Monday Night Football to end out Week 3 of this NFL season to run the triple option. Like Michigan, we established the run. Like the Steelers, we established the run. We make sure it looks good on this Monday. It's our favorite side, total, and prop for the 2 games that we have on this Monday Night Football doubleheader. As we just learned as well, or we had already learned it, but we were reminded by our producer extraordinaire, a strong end of the show as opposed to the start for Joe Frizo. We've got another Monday Night doubleheader next week, week number 4, DRS. Again, you became the commissioner of injury updates last week, and you were all over Jordan Love and that he was not going to play on Sunday in Tennessee. It seems as though in your early application to become commissioner of Monday Night Football, you're delivering with 2 consecutive doubleheaders.
Yes, it's going to be fun to let it play out. And also, the good part about that, too, is less like dead time, right? Because primetime games, we know, gets more commercial breaks than the games over the weekend. So at least you will have another game on for the majority of both of these games that you can just switch to and go back and forth with. And also 2 opportunities to bet 2 different games at 2 different times. It's fantastic. It should happen more than just 4 times a season.
And we will at least have it tonight. So let's go to our triple option again. Favorite side, total, and prop. DRS, your favorite side out of the 2 games is what?
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills turning the lights out on the Jacksonville Jaguars season and basically signing that death certificate for Doug Peterson as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a shame. This team is way too talented, Ben. Way too talented to be 0-3 on the season without a chance to make the playoffs. That's going to be a reality tonight because the Buffalo Bills, 2-0, already playing good football, rested and ready at home. That place in Buffalo, Orchard Park, is going to be electric tonight. If the Buffalo Bills are going to win this football game, the Buffalo Bills are going to win by margin. Give me the Bills as my favorite side tonight. I'll lay the 5.5 points, rested and ready in Buffalo.
Super ready in Buffalo as they have had a super amount of rest. 11 days. They played Thursday, week number 2 on a short week, a mini bye, and then some on this Monday. A little bit of contradiction here between the 2 hosts on the early line on this Monday. Jacksonville plus 5.5 is the way that I look at it. One, it's been the year of the underdog through the first 3 weeks, and we might see it again here tonight. 2 underdogs of at least 5.5 points. So far this year, of the 15 games we have seen that, 13-2 against the spread are the underdogs with 9 outright victories. And Jacksonville not only hoping to partake in the trend as a 5.5-point dog, but also has been great underdog Peterson on the road, 10-8 ATS, and great as an underdog, 12-9 against the spread, covering, albeit blowing a double-digit first-half lead to Miami in week number 1. Buffalo as a favorite 17 times since the beginning of last year, just 7-10 against the spread. I do think the Bills eke this out, but Jacksonville can ill afford an 0-3 start. And Donnie, this Jags team had aspirations to contend with the Texans for the top spot in the AFC South, or maybe earn a wild card berth in the AFC. They start 0-3 only once since the turn of the millennium, since 2000, has a team started winless 0-3 and made the postseason.
Yeah, you are what your record says you are. If you're 0-3, you're a bad football team. You don't deserve to make the playoffs. And also from a Jacksonville side, should have won week 1, should have won week number 2. Now you're on the road against a team that has a rest advantage and a home field advantage going up against you. Yeah. That's not a great sign here. But also, that's the reason why it's 5.5, Ben, and not 8.5 or 9.5 at this point. We're expecting a tough game. And also the 0-3 angle is real. Teams, with just what Ben just explained to you guys out there, the teams are explaining to themselves here, do you guys like your jobs? Do you like your nice houses? Do you like your nice cars? Lose this football game? That's going to go away. So there's a lot of emphasis in the building on Jacksonville in a must-win situation tonight. There is some play to that.
No doubt about it. All right, let's go to our favorite total of the weekend. Slight contradiction, but is it really? DRS, start off with your favorite total this Monday night doubleheader.
I'm going to go under today on the Bengals and the Commanders. We just had Tom Vecchio on. I like the under last night in that game between Kansas City and Atlanta. And, boy, you had to hold on for dear life at the end of the game to cover that. But it does come in. Until you have the over, you don't have the over in your pocket. I look for Lou Anarumo to have a great presence on defense tonight with that Cincinnati Bengals defense, slowing down that offense for Washington, who, quite frankly, isn't necessarily an aerial assault out there as we're waiting on touchdown passes for Jaden Daniels. The Bengals, I think, are locked in. The most important thing for the Bengals tonight, Ben, for me, not style points, not getting T. Higgins in the end zone, not getting Jamar Chase in the end zone, which I do think at least one of those guys gets in. It's just picking up the victory and moving forward on the season, which means that defense is going to be the highlight tonight. I think the game stays under 46.5.
And the line is the line. Again, 7.5 points in favor of a team who was winless and already blew a 7.5-point spread in its favor, losing outright week number 1. I think the Bengals win comfortably tonight, and I think they go over their first half team total of 13.5 points. I said slight contradiction between us, Donnie, but really not truly, because I think both you and I expect this to be a Cincinnati affair at home. The Bengals had 16 points in the opening half last week against Kansas City. I think Joe Burrow comes out firing tonight. I think T. Higgins helps, and I think Jamar Chase has a big game, which goes right into your favorite prop of this Monday night slate. If you did not select it, Donnie, it would have been mine as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit juicy on this side, but I think it makes a lot of sense because you are trying to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins going. You're trying to win a football game. It's home. It's in Cincinnati. We're not in November, Ben, where it's 32 degrees with 20 mile an hour wind blowing tonight. It's supposed to be 75 degrees, a nice night here. What a better way to start off your season, even though technically they have started the season, by getting a win at home in front of your crowd. Joe Burrow cooking with his wide receivers tonight. And we don't need 4 touchdowns. We need 2 touchdowns, and I do believe that happens tonight. Joe Burrow over 1.5 touchdown passes.
Completely agree, DRS. He threw 2 last week against Kansas City. I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins will be the beneficiaries. 261.5 is the number. Washington, the worst secondary in the NFL a year ago. Daniel Jones threw for 2. Baker Mayfield threw for 4 in week number 1 and also threw for nearly 300 yards. I'll go to the other game. Buffalo, James Cook over 83.5 rushing plus receiving yards. He's had 95 scrimmage yards at least in each of the first 2. Devon Achane had 74 receiving yards against Jacksonville in week number 1. DRS, enjoy the Monday, my friend. We'll talk on Thursday.
Amen. Let's get after tonight. Win some money out there, people. Let's cash tickets. Let's go.
NFL football in-game live game day and the money line starting in 8 minutes or so on Sports Grid Radio. More here on the early line next.